All right, it's This Week in Charles Bronson, a highly uncalled for news and pop culture program that evolves around one weirdo and his obsession with the late great action star, and that weirdo is me. But since starting this podcast, I have accumulated a gang and community of weirdos, and tonight we have the Aussie Avenger, the Vegemite Vigilante, Maximum Kill Count, the Thunder from Down Under that makes all the women wonder, Max Adams with us, and of course, our guest is a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. The badass of all Bronson biographies. If you do not read this man, you don't know beans from bullshit. All other all other Bronson biographers are fart-tongued liars. That's right. I'm talking about the bishop of all things, Buczynski, author, film historian, and contributor to commentaries of many Blu-rays and DVDs, the great Paul, number one with a bullet, Talbot. Paul Talbot, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I love the white buffalo's always been a fascination for me, so I'm glad we're doing this show.
Yes, that's right. Tonight is May 6th, 1977, and a a sickly Wild Bill Hickok is traveling into South Dakota under the names James Otis, but nobody seems to be buying it. Everybody seems to know it's him. In hunt of a white buffalo and maybe in search of some gold. And of course, we have Will, and of course, that's played by Charles Bronson. And we have Will Sampson as Crazy Horse, although most of the film, his name is Worm, as he is hunting the white buffalo for a more spiritual reason. His daughter was killed by the white buffalo, as and many of his tribes people were maimed and also killed. And he cannot wear the name Crazy Horse or earn his honor back until he kills the white buffalo. So yeah, this is a. I'm glad that you said that this is a was a fascination for you because I made my 50 top Bronson movies list lately, and I really wish I didn't do it because I only did it for the page. I really can't make. I'm not a list person, and I looked at it today and I was like, no, this movie needs to move way up on the list because this is a film that I've loved since a kid. I always thought of it. I watch it with my son because for me, I feel it gives a feel of something you can watch with the family. I mean, because kids don't know what he's talking about when he's talking about his the venereal disease, which is driving Wild Bill Hickok crazy. But I just think this is a fun, fascinating movie, and it's somewhat of a fantasy film. How do you look at it, Paul? How do you see the film?
Yeah, it's definitely I would say a fantasy film. It's interesting because the this movie kind of evolved. It didn't really become what the filmmakers wanted to be. J. Lee Thompson, the director, Pancho Coner, the producer, and I spoke with Pancho Coner about this. Originally, you weren't supposed to see the white buffalo. That's why if you read the novel, it's kind of like you don't. The white buffalo may be in Wild Bill Hickok's mind, it may be in Crazy Horse's mind. So when they
Right,
were making the film, you were never actually going to see the buffalo. You were just going to see like a white flash, and you were just going to see like flashes of the horns.
right.
And so, and then when Dino De Laurentiis, the Italian producer, the financier, when he saw the final cut, he said, "Wait a minute, it's called the White Buffalo, but there's no white buffalo in it. We got to put a white buffalo in here." So at that time, he was producing the 1976 version of King Kong, where they had really elaborate animatronics. There was a guy in a costume, but his mask was really manipulated with animatronics, and they made this gigantic robot hand. So De Laurentiis said, "Well, look, put White Buffalo on hold for 6 months. Let these guys finish King Kong, and then they'll build this elaborate mechanical White Buffalo, and we'll put that in the movie." So it became something totally different. That's why a lot of people watch the movie, and the biggest criticism is the buffalo. They say it looks so fake, it looks so cheesy, but of course, that's not how the filmmakers originally wanted to make this movie.
I remember thinking that the buffalo looked kind of fake even as a kid, but for me, it was more like the back legs. They kind of like stayed together, like you could tell they were running on a track. But I read somewhere too that he was trying to profit off of the success of Jaws by having another giant uh, killer animal type movie. I don't know. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, well, the novel was written, of course, before Jaws, but then when they were making the film, Jaws had come out and was one of the biggest hit of all time. So everybody wanted to copy that. There's a movie called Grizzly, which is about a giant grizzly bear, and
Yes.
of course De Laurentiis was making King Kong, which of course was a remake, so it wasn't exactly a Jaws inspiration, but it was still inspired, I guess, by the success of Jaws. And so De Laurentiis was making three movies simultaneously: King Kong, The White Buffalo, and Orca, which is about a
Right.
giant whale. And interesting, all three of those movies were pretty much filmed overlapping. And there's some actors who appear in like two of the movies. There's some technicians who, of course, appear in two of the movies. So that's kind of like a giant monster trilogy by Dino De Laurentiis.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned that the White Buffalo wasn't supposed to be seen. It was supposed to more represent something. And I just turned 50 recently, and as I watch these movies as I get older, I try to see more into them. I try to, and obviously for the sake of the show, I try to see a little more than just action and adventure. And even with the White Buffalo in the film, and even with it maybe even looking a little cheap, I did get the sense that this was more of a story of um kind of a couple of guys coming to grips with mortality. One of them losing his daughter and needing to make a name for himself, and one being Wild Bill Hickok, who had already made a name for himself, but was at the end of his life and really was probably more tortured by the fact that he was dying and that he was on the downside of his life, and it was more and he it's this White Buffalo was kind of like his albatross, his Moby Dick, and he needed something something to live for, kind of, in a way. But then, like, I feel like once he did team up with Crazy Horse, I feel like Crazy Horse's, and not to jump too far ahead in the movie, but Crazy Horse's needs became more important to him, and I feel like that was a nice message. That's why I like watching the movie with my kid. I think kids love seeing the good guy, especially in westerns, when the cowboys and the Indians come together and like work together. And I know my son, he's 9, and he seems to like this movie because of that.
Yeah, definitely. The White Buffalo, like you said, it the title, the White Buffalo, on the one hand, of course, it literally means that white buffalo, but it also means kind of like the albatross that
Mhm.
Wild Bill Hickok is carrying, and also Crazy Horse is carrying. So it's kind of like it's almost like they're seeking it out, but it's almost like the one thing that's keeping both of them alive is that drive to go finally find this white buffalo. So it's a character driven western. One thing Pancho Corner told me, he and J. Lee Thompson were trying to make almost like an art house western. They weren't trying to
Yeah.
make some pop culture. It was it's a character driven, really psychological, and very interesting too. It's like these two men, Wild Bill Hickok and Crazy Horse, even though they're different races, and of course at that time it was very unusual for whites and natives to blend together and be friends. They of course realized they're ultimately almost like two sides of the same coin.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, it almost had a message, kind of like in Drumbeat, where Charles Bronson's character has that, not Drumbeat, my apologies, Run of the Arrow, where he has that conversation with Rod Steiger's character about the God that they believe in and how it's the same God, it's just under different names. And they're pretty much fighting the same demon, which really I don't think really is the I don't really think it is the buffalo. It's I mean it is the buffalo, but it represents something greater, I think. Max, what did you want to say about this film? Where does it land for you in your fandom?
Yeah, I love the film. Like you said before, we all did our top 50, which yeah, you just can't do. But
Yeah.
it's just out of my top five. But I can remember as a young fellow watching it, and yeah, probably feeling the white buffalo wasn't wasn't right. But I've learned to love it. I've watched it more. The more I watch it, the more I see the quality of the white buffalo and what it means, and it symbolizes the mystic, and I think it's done really well. I was going to ask Paul that I think I heard on a podcast somewhere that you didn't see the White Buffalo on you watched it on VHS. No, you had to see it on TV, and it was called Hunt to Kill. I wonder why they do that and where that came from, because it was the White Buffalo. The book was the White Buffalo. The like the novel, the screenwriter wrote it. The White Buffalo. Why do they change the names like that? Hunt to Kill. That's so crazy.
Yeah, that one, they did that one, kind of like what you said, interesting. Back in the 1970s, of course, when I was a child, I was a big Charles Bronson fan. I used to go see all of his movies. The White Buffalo, I saw the previews playing on television, and I was intrigued. I was like, wow, Charles Bronson fighting a white buffalo. I got to see this one. But at the time, I couldn't drive myself. It was at a theater far away, and I couldn't get anybody to take me. So I missed it. And then a couple of years later, it came on television. And as you said, it was called Hunt to Kill on American television. And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, Hunt to Kill, this is the White Buffalo. Why are they calling it something different? But I realize now the White Buffalo was not a financial success at the theaters in the United States. It did okay in some territories in the United States, but overall it was a money loser. So when they came on television, Bronson had just been in a movie with Lee Marvin called Death Hunt, which was also set in the snow. So I think they did that for television, trying to maybe tie it in with Death Hunt. Maybe some people might think it was Death Hunt. So that was the reason. That's something they do occasionally. Whenever a film, they used to do that. Whenever a film did not do well in the theaters, sometimes they would change the title for television.
I think
Let me
also
ask you.
too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, something I wanted to ask. How did you guys first see the White Buffalo? Do you remember? Because, like I said, I first saw it, like Max said, on American television, network television. Do you guys remember how you first encountered this movie?
I
I
do.
moved. Go ahead,
D-
Max.
oh, sorry, on DVD. Yeah,
Mhm.
we're pretty isolated here in Australia, and I don't think it ever showed on TV. Yeah, I had to get it on DVD. I'm glad I didn't see it on VHS. They said that was pretty poor quality, but I don't remember it ever being, publicized. So I was very much a Bronson fan when it would have come out, but and they never publicized it like King Kong. Like I just don't understand. It was such a brilliant. It never got promoted like it should.
Right.
But
So you
when
Yeah,
just happened to see the DVD cover? Is that how you found out about it? Do you remember? Were you at a shop and just saw the DVD cover and that made you pick it up?
I would have watched anything of Bronson. I
Okay.
chased anything of Bronson at that. Yeah, I've been a big fan for a long time, but it's stage two now. You guys have motivated me and made me realize there's so much more to being just a Bronson fan. It's so
Right.
many rabbit holes to go down and so much interest. So yeah, I was probably read a couple of books and I loved my favorite was Hard Times, and it was called a street fight again. We're talking about Hunt to Kill, but Hard Times was the street fighter here in Australia.
Right.
All that as a very young man, and I wanted to be a boxer, and I wanted to be I was a big Charles Bronson fan from then on. Yeah.
Good. Good. Okay.
I was too in 1977, and that feels weird saying that because I mean I look exactly the same age as you guys, and but I got into the to the films when I was like 12 or 13, and back then there really wasn't like well, video stores were big, but it wasn't like nowadays where you can like search for everything. So I remember finding a book at the library, the films of Charles Bronson, and I would just pick up the TV guide every week, not the, but the local TV guide, whatever that was called, and I would just read the names of every movie and look for the name Charles Bronson underneath it, or I would look for the ones like that his name might not be underneath because he was further down the movies that I saw in that book. And I would videotape them, or I would stay up late and watch them. And I believe the White Buffalo I saw probably on Channel 17 out of Philadelphia. And I remember, if that movie, I think if that movie would have came out in the 80s, and it would have been one of those movies that well, actually, it wouldn't have to have come out in the 80s. If that movie would have been played more on, say, like home box office or something, that movie really is the kind of movie me and my friends um I would have loved. And when I watch it now, like, it's funny because I think this is a great movie for young boys, and it's a great movie for old men. I mean, sitting there watching it now, I was thinking, like, I gotta get my dad to watch this with me. Clint Walker, uh, Jack Warden, Kim Novak, all those, John Carradine. I mean, wow. And I believe it made less than 25 million in the box office. I don't know if that's first weekend or if that's all together, but that's a lot less than Star Wars and Smokey and the Bandit, which came out a week or two after. And
Yeah,
Bronson was a
right.
pretty big star at the time, right? Or was his star, you would know better than me, Paul. Was his star fading a little bit at that time, or
His star was definitely fading in the United States. He never really broke through huge in the United States. He was always somebody who was always there. But, Death Wish was really the only blockbuster he had in the United States. And
Mhm.
then after that, he did Breakout, which was a big hit in the United States. But after that, pretty much he, was kind of declining in the United States. So White Buffalo was definitely one of the ones that really pulled him down in the United States. Now, of course, worldwide, he was still doing well. For example, the White Buffalo did very well in Japan, but it did not do well in the United States. In fact, I don't think it even did. In the United States, the White Buffalo was one of the least successful major films of the summer of 1977. It was only number 56 on the list of top grosses of the season, and it wasn't among the top 30 hits. And in fact, at that time, a lot of the Nature Go Wrong epics were making a lot of money, like Kingdom of the Spiders, Empire of the Ants, and Tentacles. They all made more money than White Buffalo at the American screen. So White Buffalo did not do well in the United States. It did well in the South. It did well at the Southern drive-ins, and it did well in New England. I maybe because there was a lot of hunters in New England, and there is some Native American culture, but overall, it did not do well, in the United States. And it was definitely one of the ones that was kind of led to Bronson's uh, downfall.
then I can't imagine my father or my grandfathers or my uncles like not loving this movie. But I guess for to be really successful in the box office, you can't just be loved by, you know, 35 and up year old men. I guess you have to have something that attracts the whole family, like a Star Wars or even a Smokey and the Bandit. I'm sure that zany humor probably um, reached a lot of teenagers and stuff like that. I'm just kind of surprised. I think it's a beautiful movie, and I think it's really way better than the credit that it gets.
Right. And one thing interesting too, in fact, when they advertised this movie, um, Bronson's name was even kind of downplayed. If you look at the poster they used, they had that poster of the White Buffalo, and you had kind of like Bronson, a painting of Bronson at the bottom, but you didn't really see his face. So they didn't really play up Bronson being in the film. And even some of the TV spots don't mention Bronson at all, which is interesting. They play it as a complete King Kong, or Jaws with a buffalo. So Bronson's not even mentioned, and there's not even any images of Bronson in some of the TV spots.
Yeah, Paul, I think it's one of Bronson's best performances, acting performances. He's got a lot of dialogue. He plays his part. You know he's in pain most of the time, but he's charismatic, and he gets through the whole film, and it's such a great film. it's picturesque.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
speak. Mhm.
And one good thing, of course, with movies can continue to go on, which is a good thing. Now we have
Mhm.
streaming and Blu-ray. So if something doesn't do well at the box office, 40 years ago, it can still live on, because I think the cult following for the White Buffalo is continuing to grow. And interesting, it was even though the White Buffalo didn't do well in the United States, Bronson was still kept as busy and as highly paid as usual. Uh, a poll taken at the end of 1976 among the film fans in 60 different countries named him as the world's most popular movie star. So, it
Yeah.
didn't, so he still kept going, until the end of his life. It didn't, end his career.
Well, even in the 80s when he was making what some people would say were bad movies for canon. I wouldn't say that. Uh like he was still like a huge name. Like when I became a fan, like, and I started talking to people, like you you either met a Bronson fanatic, like people were either fanatics at that point or they weren't, like in the 80s, I feel like. But there was still a lot of people that would go see those films for because they knew what they were going to get. And I think you saying that it was called Hunt to Kill on TV, I think that probably he was just so known for Death Wish and Death Hunt and those type of names that I think maybe they thought, well, him hunting a buffalo won't get people to tune in, so we'll call it Hunt to Kill. That's all I can think of. And to speak on what Max said about his acting, you always hear that he a lot of critics say that he's stone faced and he doesn't show much emotion, but he showed a lot of emotion in this film, specifically like when he kind of let Crazy Horse take the glory for getting that buffalo. Like there was like an empathy in his eyes, a look in his face, and there was even like a look on his face, like when he was about to when um Zane, Jack Warden's character, was going to turn on him. There was like a like you could feel like a sadness, kind of like don't try it on, old timer. Like he had a look on his face, like does it really have to come to this? I thought he really showed a lot of range, and people are going to make fun of me for that. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people like the joke to make the joke about Charles Bronson, and I just don't see it in these earlier films.
Yeah, well,
That
I agree. People, of course, he's always been a very underrated actor,
Mhm.
and it's always going to be that way. We can say that pretty much about any actor, any artist, etc. Some people love them, some people don't. So that you're never going to find any type of artist who everybody in the world loves. There's always going to be some people who don't like them. One important thing
Right,
too, Bronson was 55 years old when he made The White Buffalo. The
right,
amazing thing about Bronson, he didn't become a star until very late in life. He was 45 when he made Once Upon a Time in the West. So Bronson was, into middle age when he became a superstar. So that's
right.
we always have to take into we always have to remember that, when we're talking about Bronson's career and his success.
And he was playing a 34-year-old
Mhm.
uh, Wild Bill Hickok.
Right.
Right.
And he pulled it
Yeah.
off. So,
Right.
one
And
thing
that's,
I
and of course, Hickok had lived a hard life, so he did look much older. In fact, if you look at some of the pictures of Hickok and look at what Bronson looks like in the movie, he certainly, it's a good match, because obviously people looked older back then. Certainly the life that Wild Bill
Oh
Hickok
yeah.
was,
he certainly had his ailments, but did you pick up that he had the lip sore as well as the gonorrhea or like all ailments that he had? For half the movie, he had this.
Yeah, I
Uh,
noticed that. I was sitting there thinking, does he always have that?
Disease, yeah.
yeah, you're right. I know what you're talking about too. That's interesting too. I wonder if yeah, I wonder if that was put there deliberately, but or I'm not sure. But that's kind of it's a daring part too, for Bronson to be, his character is it it's blatant, it's admitted in the film that he's suffering from syphilis, and he's
Mhm.
also impotent because of that. So, a lot
Yeah.
of major stars, certainly tough guy stars, would maybe not one who might have said, "Look, can we cut that part out?" You know what I'm saying? My fans aren't going to like me seeing being not able to perform because I have syphilis. So there's some daring elements about the film. Something interesting too. Bronson was originally going to play Crazy Horse. Eric talked.
Wow.
Yeah, Eric talked about Drumbeat and Run of the Arrow early in his career, up until Chato's Land. Bronson played Native Americans many, many times. So when he first was going to make The White Buffalo, he was going to play Crazy Horse, and they were going to get another actor to play Hickok. For example, Chris Sarandon, who had just made the De Laurentiis movie Lipstick, he played the rapist in that. De Laurentiis offered the part to Chris Sarandon when
Wow.
Bronson was still playing Crazy Horse, but Bronson decided himself. He decided that the part should be played by an actual Native American. And then, of course, they
Yeah.
found a great choice. They found Will Sampson, who does a fantastic job as Crazy Horse.
Let me ask you a question about Native American actors, because I thought about this a lot watching Chato's Land. Um, there's quite a few Native American actors to play these parts. We had Will Sampson in this, so we had Chief Tug Smith, who was in Superman, 1978 Superman. Um, and Bronson, before I ask you this question, Bronson, and to be honest with you, they keep saying white man, white man. For me, being from a neighborhood that like is more like an Anglo-Germanic kind of Irish, like to me, Charles Bronson, I mean, he's definitely not a person of color, but he just doesn't look to me as a kid, like his ethnicity was always kind of questionable to me. So yeah, I could see it being like, with all the talk, white man, But did have you ever gotten in your um years of studying film and that, did you ever gotten to interview any of these Native American actors? I find it fascinating as some of them don't even start doing movies until they're in their older age. And I wonder if that's just because they're needed to play older characters or what reason that is. I mean, Will Sampson was pretty successful as a Native American actor, but like this Chief Tug Smith, he was in like four things, it looks like.
Right. And we don't know. We find out a lot of these actors who played Native Americans and actually claimed to be Native American. We find out later that they actually weren't. I guess the most famous one is Iron Eyes Cody, who did many, many movies. He did the famous commercials where he was the native crying on the horse, the
Oh,
police.
yes. Hmm.
They found out that he was actually 100% Italian American. So a lot of these actors, even we find out that they were not actually Native American. So, but I guess to answer your question, a lot of it used to be the Native Americans would be played by white actors.
Right.
Either they had, Italians have dark skin anyway, so they could maybe pass as Native American, or they put dark makeup on white people to pass them off as Native Americans. Once we start getting into like the 1960s, 1970s, there was a trend to use real Native American actors. So I think a lot of these older people who didn't start working, a lot of real Native Americans who didn't start acting till later in life, it was because that kind of opened up where people were saying, let's use real Native Americans in these films instead of white actors with makeup on.
Yeah, hey, Paul,
But
you would have been aware that Will Sampson on the movie White Buffalo, he halted production because he refused to act when he found out that production hadn't hired any Native Americans. They had hired white only actors for the part. So he refused to act until they changed that for to support his fellow Native Americans. Did you? Yeah. Did you hear that? I found that in my research.
yep, yeah, that is correct. In fact, something interesting. In fact, all of the stunt men in the film who do stunts for the Native American characters were Native American. For example, if you look, trying to find his name right now. Let's see. Yeah, Native American stuntman named Eli Bo Jack Blackfeather. He did the stunts for Will Sampson in the film. So when you see stunts for Will Sampson in the film, that was performed by an actual Native American stuntman. His name was Eli Bo Jack Blackfeather. And then they also used in the scene filmed in Colorado up in the mountains when Crazy Horse and Wild Bill Hickok first meet. Crazy Horse is having this confrontation with these other natives, and Wild Bill Hickok helps him. So many of those natives, we see him get shot and fall off the cliff. Well, those were all played by Native Americans, but the fall off the cliff was actually done by a Native American stuntman. He, in fact, made a lot of money because there was only one stuntman, so he took the fall for all of those characters. I'm trying to find, I can't find his name now, but that was a Native American stuntman who falls off the cliff multiple times in the film.
To ride that buffalo, that would have to be a stunt. He
Yep,
would
you
have.
can. In fact, if you're like me and you're obsessed, you can actually freeze frame the film and you can see which shots is uh, Will Sampson's stunt double. Also, some of the stuff during the stagecoach scene, you can see when the stuntman jumps on the horse really quick. That's actually Eli Bo Jack Blackfeather standing in for Will Sampson.
I like that stagecoach scene since you brought it up. I looked up the woman in that. Her name was Cara Williams,
Mhm.
and she was a pretty she was fairly old at that time. She was around in the golden age of Hollywood and did quite a few things. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, she,
I
she
like
actually had gotten an Oscar nomination. She plays Tony Curtis's love interest in The Defiant Ones. So,
that's right,
yep.
yes.
Mhm.
And you have Douglas Fowley as the train conductor, who interestingly enough is the father of Kim Fowley for us rock and roll fans. Kim Fowley was the manager, producer, kind of Svengali behind the Runaways with Joan Jett, Lita Ford, and Cherry Curry. And I really liked um oh God, give me Shay Duffin. That
Right.
guy, he was in one of those Leprechaun movies. And he was
Right.
also in Ted to Midnight. I was trying to picture him. I didn't look it up, but I was like, who was he in Ted to Midnight? I couldn't
And
picture
10 to
him.
Midnight, he's the guy at the very, very beginning of 10 to Midnight. Bronson is interviewing him. The very
Oh my
first,
God, that
yeah,
was him?
yep,
Holy shit. And he was in The Departed, which is a great movie.
yep. Yeah, interesting thing. Was actually from he actually was from Ireland, so he had that actual Irish accent. He was from Dublin, Ireland. So interesting, of course, the White Buffalo does something too. They try to have a lot of different types of actors because, of course, at this time the West was a lot of immigrants. It was a melting
Yeah.
pot. So
They
we
did a
have,
real good job. They did a real
mhm.
good job with that, I thought.
Yeah, he's in probably best known for Leprechaun, like you said. He plays the guy that steals the gold from the title creature and starts all the trouble. So
Yeah, I only watch the Leprechaun films if they're Leprechaun in the Hood.
right.
I'm an into Leprechaun in the Hood fan.
Well, the good one would be Leprechaun meets White Buffalo. They should make that one. That'd be good.
Oh my God, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely awesome.
Right. And
And
what? So this just came up too while I'm looking at my notes. The White Buffalo did have a lot of changes in it. For example, we just talked about the guy um, Douglas Fowley, who's the train conductor. Originally,
uh,
this film, you don't know until the very end, or you don't know until the middle of the film that Bronson is playing Wild Bill Hickok, because of course he's using a James Otis. He's using that
right.
pseudonym, and it wasn't until the shootout scene with Clint Walker where you hear the guys in the bar saying, "Hey, that's Wild Bill Hickok. That's Wild Bill Hickok." We weren't supposed to know till then that Bronson was playing Wild Bill Hickok. So
Oh wow.
so they added some narration at the beginning. That train conductor at the beginning, he talks for a little bit and he says, "This is Wild Bill Hickok." So they wanted to let us know at the very beginning that Bronson is playing Wild Bill Hickok. Also, again, weren't supposed to know at the end that Will Sampson is Crazy Horse because he's called Worm throughout the film. They added
Right.
some dialogue in the teepee scene where the Native American is saying to Crazy Horse, he's saying Crazy Horse. He calls him by
Right.
name. They dubbed that in so the audience would know right away that Will Sampson is Crazy Horse.
I don't
I,
think they should have did that. I thought it was cool at the end when Bronson was like, "You're crazy, horse."
right. Yeah, I agree. I think it was because again they wanted to, I think, sell the movie. They wanted to put that in the trailer.
Right.
Charles Bronson is Wild Bill Hickok. Will Sampson is Crazy Horse. So that's kind of a to entice the audience to want to go see it. Something else too, there's like if you watch the shootout scene, the scene in the bar, we see a guy walking around, and that guy is Martin Cove, who's best known for playing the evil martial arts instructor in the Karate Kid movies.
Right.
That character is supposed to be Jack McCall, the real life figure who shot Hickok to death. And there was a confrontation with Hickok and McCall where McCall backs down from Hickok's pistols, which of course would add some irony because, of course, eventually that character actually was the one who did kill Wild Bill Hickok. But they dropped that dialogue. I guess they wanted to, tighten it up. A good bit of was cut out of that scene in the saloon. A good bit was cut there. Obviously, they were trying to tighten the film up.
How do you find this information? Is it from talking to a lot of people? I mean, I would assume that research, see, for me, I like I trust you and I trust a couple of the other writers. I'm sure Steve Peros or Dwayne Epstein, Burt Kearns. I trust you guys. Sometimes I'm weary to come to the program with something that I read on the internet because there's so much of this AI and so much of this nonsense out there. And it's like even when I read something that I believe and I'm like, well, this is very believable. I'm like, I'm afraid. I'm almost afraid to bring it to the table. Do you understand? Do you know what I'm
Oh,
saying? Is that
absolutely. Yeah,
hmm
absolutely. Film scholarship and all scholarship, it's really frightening right now because, as you said, there's all this AI out there, which is just incredible how it's so wrong. It's like ridiculously wrong, you know?
right,
So, and an important thing about a book or even an article on the internet, it has citations at the end that says where the information comes from. Whenever I'm doing like my comment, whenever I do a book, an article, I of course have my citations, my proof of where this came from. And of course,
right,
commentary tracks, I really can't put all of that in. You
hmm
can't stop and say, I can't at the end list all your sources. So
right,
anyway, to answer your question, where all my stuff comes like from this, for White Buffalo, I interviewed Pancho Kona, the producer, and he sent me some production documents. And then I usually have to dig online and find vintage articles. And a lot of this, like, found out the stuff that was cut out. I was able to track down a script of the White Buffalo,
oh wow,
which had all that information. So I can piece all that together as terms of what was cut out. And then I can also find like some pictures on the internet. For example, the confrontation with Martin Cove and Charles Bronson was cut out. I did find a picture on the internet where that's
Hmm.
of that confrontation. So, like you said, it's getting very scary right now to verify stuff because and everybody passes on the wrong information. It's like the game we used to play in elementary school. A guy whispers something into a kid's ear, then he turns and whispers it, and by the time it gets to the end, it gets changed completely. So,
Yeah,
we're getting all this ridiculous stuff. And I saw something the other day where something like Keith Richards is the drummer for the Rolling Stones, and it's like, my God, how does
right,
that get
hmm
wrong? I mean, the stuff, it would be like Joe Namath was a basketball player. It's like, my God, stuff like this
yeah.
it's
It's
like a
scary.
joke. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
So I
it's
mean,
sca- it's scary because young kids, that's where they're gonna be getting a lot of information,
right,
and it may not be important to the TikTok generation, but it's important to us, and I'm sure there will be kids in the future.
right,
There's fans of this program in their 20s and yeah, people in their early 30s are kids
mhm,
anymore, and they want the truth. They don't want this. And yeah, when you're talking about showbiz or Hollywood, there's going to be things are going to be said that might be a little stretching of the truth, or people's memories aren't always perfect, but
right.
at least the best attempt at the truth. It's become stressful for me because I I like to joke around and have a lot of fun, but I don't want to tell I don't want to tell any falsehoods about, you know, these people whose names we're trying to keep alive.
Right. Absolutely. And another one I saw, someone said Elvis Presley was offered death wish. So it's like, my God, it's like some of the stuff is just,
Well, that would be
so
great.
yeah. So I don't know
Well,
what's
I heard somewhere like AI that Bronson had another wife between
Yeah.
Jill, and I searched for ages, yonks, and that's when I think I talked to Eric and sort of straightened me out a bit about AI. But another one where he was bald and like had a toupee for
right.
years.
Yeah.
It's
That
crazy.
So
was a big one. That was before AI, the bald thing. They used to say that in the 80s. I remember.
yeah.
So,
Someone else even said Bronson, his face was bald. He couldn't grow a mustache. It was fake. So I was like, so I don't know really what this comes.
Well, we confirmed with Lindsay Ireland, his niece,
Right.
that he was had a very nice head of hair. So
Oh yeah. Well, that's pretty obvious. I mean, I'm bald, so I'm obsessed with hair. So I can always tell if somebody has a toupee.
exactly.
So believe me, Bronson's hair is
It's
completely real.
oh,
So,
it was too beautiful. Like I
right,
mean, even because back then, even the richest man in the world, that toupee looked fake. You know what I mean?
right, right.
It's crazy.
yeah.
Max, what you got a question?
Oh, mate, I've got lots of questions. I've got lots. Um, no, the it was interesting to know that it was they were so high up at uh, where was it at Cannon City that sometimes the crew had to wear oxygen masks, and it was a snowmobile access only, and that looked so wonderful on a screen. But did you know much about that, Paul?
Yeah, that was let me try to find that.
In the high mountain regions, they said a lot of the crew members had to wear it. And I was just wondering if the actors did as well.
Yeah, that was actually the bottom part when Bronson comes into town on the stagecoach. That is actually in Colorado. That used to be a where is this? That was actually a theme park in
Oh,
Colorado. That was, let me try to find that. Yeah, that's in theme park. That's near Cannon City in Colorado. It's the foot of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. It's called Buckskin Joe. It was built for the MGM Western Saddle the Wind in 1957, and they decided to keep it there as a theme park, where one of those ones where you go in, kind of like the one you see in Death Wish. You go
yeah.
there and you see gunfights being recreated, and they also would film a lot of movies were filmed there, like Cat Ballou and True Grit. Scenes from those movies were filmed there, and then up in those mountains, which is the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Let me find this.
After you find that, my 9-year-old son, he's not here at the moment, but I have a really good question from him.
All right.
While you're looking that up, I'll ask it. So, in the beginning of the movie, he wakes up from the dream and he shoots his pistols through the top bunk there in the train. And then when he arrives at Poker Jenny's place, she's now the widow. He then he wakes up and he shoots this buffalo head that's on the wall that somehow he didn't notice before he went to sleep. And my son had the greatest question: why does he keep sleeping with his pistols?
And where was his pistols? Like he was in the nightshirt. He'd stripped off. He's in his nightshirt. And where did the pistols come from? He must know. He must know. Leave pistols. Oh,
Right, right.
yeah,
After he almost killed somebody in that top bunk, my 9-year-old son wants to know what the heck. Why does he keep sleeping with those pistols? And
I, I think part of it, well, my theory is because he still needed them, even though he knew he was going to wake up and shoot stuff. He was still afraid. What if the real white buffalo comes, or what if his many enemies comes? So I guess he
right.
probably was afraid that he would shoot. I don't know. Yeah, he'd shoot holes in the walls and stuff like that, but he also might be able to, shoot an enemy who was after him. In
Yeah.
fact, Hickok is chasing the white buffalo, but he himself is other people's white buffalo because all those
Right.
the gunslingers, that's their obsession is trying to kill Wild Bill Hickok. That's what's haunting them is that they can't be known as a better gunfighter because they can't take out Wild Bill Hickok. So
And that leads to my favorite line in the movie. And this movie has some great lines. I used a couple in my intro. I don't know if you caught that. Beans from bullshit and fart-tongued liars. Asshole or fart-tongued asshole liars. Um, are you crazy coming back here? You think the Sioux forgot about how you blew the head off of Whistler, the peacemaker?
right.
That makes me laugh every time. He
You
blew
know
the
what?
head off of.
I love the scene. Sorry,
No,
I
go
love
ahead.
the scene with Poker Jenny, and she's hot for him. She wants him, and he says, "No, I'm not. I can't ride the high horse." And I
Mhm.
think she said something like, she wanted to fly the eagle. He said, nah,
Yeah.
can't do it. But he
That's
blamed
right.
one of her friends, like he said he
One
got
of
the
your
disease.
scarlet sisters doused me good. Another
Yeah.
great line.
And she said, no, that could have been me. It could have even been me. But
Yeah. And she
but
was ready to go anyway. She was like, I'll take it. I'll take the risk.
exactly.
Yeah, that's something interesting too. I think they could, of course, if they wanted to tighten the film up, they could have cut that whole scene out. They could have cut that whole character out. Of course, they didn't want to do that because Kim Novak plays the part, and she was a name actor, which would help to sell the movie, especially over in Europe where she was still really popular. One thing they did cut though, uh, she actually killed her husband. That she had an older husband who owned that boarding house. So that's one thing they cut out that we find out that she actually killed her husband. So that added something to her character, but that was something that was a bit that was cut out of the film.
I did
Very
want to
interesting.
ask about that, Paul, about Kim. I found this piece, and there's a quote from her. Um, if you told me I would be playing a love scene with Charles Buszynski as an impotent wild bill, I'd have jumped off the bridge. Do you think that would be like she's played a lot of people said she's played the Jew Island part, but would she have disliked Charlie that much? Would you
Well,
think?
the interesting thing is they actually got along because she at the time wasn't doing that much work. So she very rarely worked in the 1970s. So when she did that film, she hadn't worked for a while. So when she started filming, she was flubbing her lines. And to make her feel comfortable, Bronson pretended to flub his lines too. So that kind of got her relaxed. So I think they had a good working relationship, Kim Novak and Bronson. Something interesting, we talked about how the film was not a hit. I read an interview with Kim Novak, and she had said that she did a movie called The White Buffalo with Charles Bronson that never came out. So it was, she didn't even think the film was ever released. That shows you how little it got much publicity in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's funny how that's another issue too when you're studying this stuff is people's memories are very they're not they're not always great, you know.
As you said, the memory is a strange thing. Whenever you
Mhm.
interview somebody or read something, we always need to go behind and check it. That's
Yeah.
like if you're doing a book and you're not sure about something, just make sure you quote, say that it's the quote of somebody saying it. You know what I'm saying? So that way you're
Yeah.
not presenting it as fact. But we all do this. It's like we might all, as we get older, we might have a picnic with our cousin or something, and they talk about a vacation that we all went on, and you both have different memories of it. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah. I don't
So
trust
it's
my memory. I don't trust my memory at all.
right.
My I so the Philadelphia Flyers like won the Stanley Cup when I was a baby. And they also beat the Russians um either before I was born or, but my dad told me so many stories about it that at one time in my teenage years, I thought that I remembered watching them beat the Russians, and I brought it up to my dad, and my dad was like, "No, you weren't born yet, or you were just a baby or something." In my head, thought I remembered seeing it, so I don't trust my own memories. So,
Right. Oh, okay. I found it. Here's the mountain story. That
Oh,
big
good.
shootout up in the mountains. That area, it's called Needle Mountains. It's in the San Juan National Forest up in southwestern Colorado. And kind of like what Max was saying, the cast and crew, they had to travel up 14,000 feet by snowmobile to reach the area. And the crew had to wear snowshoes, and some had to have inhale from oxygen tanks because of that high altitude. So they had originally planned to shoot in a lower location, but the snow had melted down below. So they had to go up high. And all
oh wow,
those big boulders weren't up there. They had to tow those up from down below. So
real
Yeah,
boulders?
those
looked
are real
like a lot of
boulders.
those in the dream sequence. A lot of it, although that was in the studio, but yet they didn't look too real, did they? Some of the boulders.
No, and it's funny you bring that up, Max, because the opening scene, it looks, you could tell it's studio, like his dream sequence. You could tell it's fake. There's a weird light behind the where the buffalo comes barging through that rock wall. But I liked the way it looked. It looked
Right.
dreamlike. It looked fantasy-ish, and it just looked like something I would love as a kid. Like it just looked cool to me.
Yeah.
Um, I think the
Well, we,
buffalo, I think we could have seen less of the buffalo because I think when you seen him running and you saw the whole thing, I think it was obvious its back two legs were just kind of on a track or something.
I
yeah,
know you say
I
that, but
have a,
when
if
you
you,
look at him running down that alley, like where the snow with trees on either side, pines on either side, he looks really good. Like every time I watch it, I sort of appreciate it more. But
It
Paula,
looks
something
better
I
than
want to ask you
CGI.
about. Oh, sorry, it's something I did want to ask, but the director, Jason, actually called it the Moby Dick. I described it as a Moby Dick of the West. What do you think of that? In my research, I did find people referring it to Moby Dick.
yeah, I think that's pretty obvious that it's trying to be a Moby Dick type thing. You know, we've got Hickok is aging and he's obsessed with this, with this white buffalo. In fact, we've got two Captain Arabs because it's got Captain Ahab because we've got Will Sampson and Charles Bronson are both obsessed with, taking out this white buffalo. In fact, if you were saying the rocks look fake. Well, it's kind of like in my commentary track, I kind of break it down. Some of the film was shot actually on location, and a lot of it, like the interior of the cave, was shot in a set built inside a studio, and it kind of cuts back and forth between them, which I think adds to the uh, adds to the fantasy element of the film.
Yeah, I think it looks really cool. I think it looks like, so this has come up on here before, and it's something that I've heard on other programs, but like CGI like looks just like there's something just phony about it. So even though these things look fake, possibly they still look real in a way because they're real, like solid, things, not a computer generated thing.
Mhm.
It's a
And I
real,
don't
yeah,
know.
it's a real object. Yeah, it's a real
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah, something else I forgot to mention also. The original idea was they were going to get once De Laurentiis said it needed more buffalo in it. First thing they did was they got some cows and they covered them with uh, fur, with some white fur, and took the cow outside to Bronson Canyon, and they were
Hmm.
going to create the buffalo using that. But the problem is, a motorcycle club was in the area with their motorcycles, with their Harley Davidsons. The bull, not it wasn't a cow, it was a bull with fur on it. The bull got scared and ran off, so they said, "Well, this isn't going to work." So
That's a funny, that's a
yeah,
funny story.
right.
You know, if you were home that night, which it sounds like a lot of America was, you might have been watching Donnie and Marie, one of their variety shows, or you might have just been listening to the hit song Undercover Angel. Remember that one? Undercover
Yeah, I
Angel,
remember that. Yeah. Mhm.
Midnight Fantasy. That's a classic. It was, in fact, I'm looking at the top 10 songs of that month, or maybe it might just be that year. And it's all love songs, a lot of love songs in 1977. The theme from A Star is Born, Evergreen. Tonight's the Night by Rod Stewart. I like Rod Stewart, but I'm not a big fan of that song. Um, I just want to be your everything, Angel in Your Arms. But I really love Undercover Angel. I think that's a one-hit wonder. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I
Well,
remember that song. That was huge at the time. The kids in my neighborhood were all singing it. How the hell did we get
I
on this
looked up
topic?
the date. I looked up the
How did we
date
get
of
on? How did we get on that?
Yeah.
That's That's what I do. So this week in Charles. So when we do these, like with just comedians or friends of mine, when we don't have a big superstar celebrity like yourself, I also do a little bit of that, like what was going on in the world and uh, at the time. I didn't do too much research on this one. Usually we'll actually do what was on ABC, what was on NBC. Um, we haven't really done that in a while because we've been getting some really neat guests.
Mhm. In fact,
You know,
okay, well, while we're on that topic, I've got something too. Hold on. I've got the popular movies of that week. Where the hell's my
there we
list?
go. Let's go. See,
All right.
you know.
Hold on. Let's
Don't tell me
while
you're
you're
not a
finding
listener,
that.
Paul.
While you're
what's that?
finding that, Paul, can I just say I did for ET. We looked up a few, and on the day Hotel California was number one. There was
Okay.
Was it?
there was a in the top 20 of that day. It's actually released on the 7th of May 1977. There were two actors that were actually in the top 20. It was David Soul was 16 with Don't Give Up on Us, and Yvonne Elliman was 19 with Hello Stranger. She did a lot of soundtrack, Jesus Christ Superstar and that sort of thing. But she was in the Jackal. She'd played a lot of songs as well. But
Okay.
two actors in well, I don't know how accurate that was, but that was a top 20 of the day.
Okay. I've got something from Boston. This is, like I said, I was living up in Boston at the time when I saw the trailers, the TV spots for the White Buffalo. So this is, and the White Buffalo, it didn't play all over the country simultaneously. It was released region by region. So the week of June 19, 1977, it was playing in Boston. So the top 10 movies in the country that week, not just in Boston, but in the country in June 19th, 1977. Number one was Star Wars. Number two was Annie Hall. Number three was Rocky. Number four was Black Sunday. Number five was The Sting, a re-release of The Sting. Number six was The Van, which is like a really obscure teen movie.
Mhm.
Number seven was The Greatest. That's a Muhammad Ali biopic, kind of forgotten now. Number eight was The White Buffalo. So that week, The White Buffalo was the number eighth highest grossing movie in the country.
And
Number
that's not
nine,
bad. That's not
right,
bad considering how it did. It didn't do that well.
right. Number nine was The Farmer, and that's a very obscure vigilante movie. It used to be really hard to find The Farmer. Now it's come out on Blu-ray. But number nine was The Farmer. Number 10, Fun with Dick and Jane, a comedy with Jane Fonda and George Segal. So there you have it for the top 10 movies, June 19th. The White Buffalo was number eight. So,
And that's another thing when you do research on these. Like I just want to know the day it came out so I could look up what was going on. But like a lot of times, like I saw May 6th, but like you said, like at that time, a lot of things were rolled out differently.
right.
And now God only knows how things are done. Like I feel like a movie comes out, but I could also get it on my TV the same day, which I think is like I find that weird, but I
Yeah,
guess
well,
I'm just
this,
getting old.
yeah, this shows you how, this is before, this is like the early days of HBO, this before VHS. And
Hmm.
so, Rocky was number three in June of 1977, and that movie came out in like December. So that shows
Right.
how big a hit that was and how movies used to stay in forever.
Oh my God,
Rocky was
yeah.
still, and Number 5 was The Sting, and The Sting was released in 1973. This is a re-release of The Sting, so it shows you movies used to the hit movies. They would be re-released to the theaters several years later. Before they ever were on television or HBO or VHS and all that. So that shows you the different time we had back then.
I believe Star Wars had a re-release because my parents tell me a story about taking me to the drive-in to see it, and I have memories of it, but like I said, I don't even trust the memories. They might have just told me the story so many times, but I know I was obsessed with that movie.
Oh yeah,
But be but being
Star Wars definitely got a theatrical re-release, at least one. It may
it
have.
had to, it had to because I was only two in '77, and I don't think they would take me to a drive-in movie when I was two. I don't think.
Right, yeah, it definitely had a re-release, a major re-release several years later. So
Yeah. But that was like my whole life when I was a kid. And it goes to show, like I find pop culture obsessions, or maybe not even obsessions, but just a pop culture enjoyment interesting. Like I was obsessed with that my whole life. But like when they made these new ones, I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon or anything, but I was over it. Like I have friends that are like in their 50s that they got a room of Star Wars stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know. It just didn't stick. But if you put on one of the first three, which they'll tell you is episode this or that, hell, I'm excited about it. So it's funny how that is. It's funny how some things remain like, you know, an obsession with you, or at least you're a big fan of, and other things don't. And I just didn't when they started making those newer ones, I just didn't really get into it. Now, if they would have brought maybe they should remake the White Buffalo and do it the way that they was meant to be. But
yeah, well,
who
if
would
they
be in
if,
it?
yeah, if they did the White Buffalo again, though, they would not do it the way they wanted it to be. They would make it even more uh elaborate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
there'd
They
be
would make
baby
Yeah,
buffaloes that come out.
right. They would make it, the size of they would make it like, it would be like Jurassic Park, you know what I'm saying, with buffaloes. There'd be a whole tribe of giant white buffaloes,
Ian Ziering would be Wild Bill Hickok.
right? And I guess Keanu Reeves would be Crazy Horse. I don't know who the hell they'd get for him in it. I don't know.
Hey, that's since we're on that, and we kind of go off down side roads. You mentioned Keanu Reeves. All right, you like Charles Bronson. I assume you're probably like me. You like a gritty, kind of like a gritty '70s action movie, like a Dirty Harry or a what's that one that Brad turned me on to with Walter Matthau where he flies the plane. Well anyway,
Well, I
um
think
it's a guy's name.
oh yeah,
Gosh,
Charlie Varick.
Charlie Varick.
Yeah.
Like, are you like me? This turns off some of our listeners because some of our listeners are still really hardcore action fans. Do you get a headache when you watch these Tom Nemec's and what the fuck's it called with Keanu Reeves? Gary, what the hell's it called? He runs around. He's got to kill everybody. Oh my God.
Oh, Jack, what the fuck's he? I'm going crazy too. I've seen those damn movies. What the fuck's his name?
Yeah, they
Everyone's
give
gonna be
me a
laughing at us because they're like,
yeah. They John Wick. Danny is
yeah,
writing John
okay,
Wick.
okay, John
Danny,
Wick. Yeah.
since you're listening, I hope Danny, you have to cut out a story from earlier. Yeah, John Wick. They give me a headache. I don't, and I don't like and they're real graphic too. Like I feel like something's missing. There's some like subtlety that's missing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, things all change. It's attention spans. It's like something like Death Wish. You show that to young people, and they're like, "Man, that's so boring." He doesn't shoot anybody till halfway through the movie.
Right.
So that's like, some young people, the only one they'll watch will be Death Wish 3, only because that one's set up like a nonstop video game. So,
Yeah,
it depends, and it's not just young people, it's like the older people go into this mindset too. It's like I was at somebody's house the other day and they've got a movie playing on TV, and then they're on their phone looking at shit, and then they're talking to somebody. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So,
I can't do that. I won't know what the hell's going on.
right. So I mean, it depends. We're gonna, we don't, we're just, I don't know. People listen to this, we think they're a couple old guys,
You
who
know
can't
what? I
keep up
don't
with the
care. I don't
times.
care what they think. You
Right.
know, the Death Wish 3, I love that movie. I do. But we didn't do that movie till probably 3 years into this podcast because I, I didn't want this to be a Death Wish 3 podcast. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like Death Wish 3, it seems to be like for some, like kind of like millennial and younger, it seems to be like the only one. Like,
Right.
or if it's not funny, they don't want to watch it. Like if they can't
Right.
laugh in some way. And it's okay that there's a lot of funny stuff in 3 and 4 and 5 and even Murphy's Law, but I still, I didn't want it to be, I didn't want the show to be a total joke. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I am gonna get you kind of jokey right now. When they were in the when him and Zane, Hickok and Zane were out there camping out in the begin at first, they're sitting there, they're eating those beans. Why did they have those nice glass plates? Like I didn't understand that. Why they didn't have like they had them pretty nice plates with them. Like I would think they would break those dishes. They had like nice dishes. I thought that was odd.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe he got him from Poker Jenny. She gave him some nice dishes. I don't know.
I
But
think you're
again,
right.
they usually have tin dishes back there because, like you said, they would they would last. So
Yeah. And
And Paul, I wanted to get onto something that I think is a passion of yours is his wardrobe.
mm,
And for a Western and for well, Bill Hickok, he had some bright gear. I know I even researched that you have bought one of his tasseled jacket and everything, but and the goggles. But he had a pink shirt at one point. He's got a beautiful big furry bear jacket. But I was amazed that when he went to bed, those white what do you call long johns sort of thing were pink or orange. Like he was very colourful with
yeah,
his
that was
wardrobe.
the thing. It was Wild Bill. That was a good research because Wild Bill Hickok was known to be a very flashy dresser. He was he liked to have a lot of I guess ornaments and stuff like that. He liked the bright colors like that, the pink, and he has that sash where he keeps his pistols in. And of course, he has his really nice uh, really nice clothes. So that was something that's actually accurate. While Bill Hickok did like to have nice, flashy clothes, whereas, of course, we normally wouldn't think that pink would be what a gunfighter would wear. But Wild Bill Hickok did like to stand out like that with the bright colors, the flashy clothes.
Yeah.
you own the sunglasses, is that correct?
Yeah, well, when I was doing the research for this movie, I did the commentary track. So I become whenever I work on something, I get really obsessed. So I loved that jacket, and I got one off Amazon. Of course, it's not the exact one like that, but I love it. I wear it in the wintertime. I can't wear it too often because it had to wear because it's pretty thick. I got to wear it when it's cold. But when I walk around with it, everybody loves it. Everybody, I go to the grocery store, people always comment on it. So I love wearing that jacket. And I did get a replica of those glasses because that's something interesting too. They, of course, don't know what his glasses actually looked like, but they were when they made the film, let me see, he wore those because of his failing eyesight. And this was actually before they had eyeglasses. So somebody just made those for them with thick blue lenses. They were made from like, glass that was made for bottles. And so there's no photos of the actual goggles, but when the prop master made them, they were inspired by the glasses used by the Royal Air Force pilots during World War One. So when they made them for the film, the glasses had frames made from hammered metal with air loops that held them in position. They were the ones you had to wrap them around your ear, and the sides had leather shades that were screwed into the frames. And in fact, if you watch the film, they were uncomfortable for Bronson to wear because they were heavy and difficult to get on. If you watch the film, you never actually see him put them on completely. He like starts to put them up to his face and it cuts to something else and it cuts back and they're on them because they were difficult to get on to wrap around his ears. And in fact, when Quentin Tarantino made Django Unchained, Jamie Foxx wears sunglasses in those movies, and those were replicas of what was in The White Buffalo, the glasses that Bronson wore in The White Buffalo.
Yeah, and Tarantino, of course, was a huge Bronson fan, and I'm going to assume Lee Marvin and all those guys as well.
Right. Hmm. Yeah, and that's and like Max said, I found a replica online of like it's not an exact one, but it's kind of close to the White Buffalo sunglasses. So in the wintertime, I do wear that. I wear that fringed jacket and those glasses, and people always comment on them. I think
Hey, Paul, there's
they
been a
think I'm an old
suggestion.
hippie or something. Yeah.
There's been a suggestion, mate. I've heard there's a suggestion that for you for the third book. I don't think you've written, but as your author picture, and there's going to be a lot about the white buffalo in that third segment of your books. You should be wearing that jacket and
Yeah.
the glasses
Definitely.
and the hat. You'd have the hat, wouldn't you? Would you have one of those hats?
I don't have one of those hats. It wouldn't be too hard to find, but you're right. I should be dressed like that in it.
That'd be your author photo on the
Right.
back page, I
Yeah.
think.
Interesting too. Like why you mentioned the hat, and that's kind of like the hat that Bronson has. He must have liked that style of hat because he wears it in Break Hard
In
Pass and From Noon Till Three.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Our guest from the telephone episode, John C. He seems to know a lot about hats. He seems to be a hacker. And speaking of hats, I wore my yard goats hat tonight because I assume you're a gentleman from the New England area. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I kind of thought that with the accent.
Right.
And we were talking earlier about how the movie's got a little bit of a deeper message, kind of a spiritual one for the Native American. And I think by the end, it becomes almost kind of a spiritual thing for Wild Bill too. A bit of it's a bit of a um, existential, maybe almost like the White Buffalo is almost his midlife crisis, although it's the end of his life, really. But what we didn't touch on is the movie also touches on the ugliness of man, and I like when he first gets off that train, that big pile of buffalo bones, and the way that people treated each other, and the whites and the Native Americans, and I really feel like it came together at the end, when they're speaking about the red truth and the white truth, and then when they, you know, I really liked that line at the end when he says you've lost a friend or and he and gained one, you know what I mean? Like, and then the camera pans up. I kind of thought that should have been the ending. I liked that. But what did you think about that? Did you get that same kind of vibe from the movie? That I mean, there really was like something that not touched on with all westerns, because some westerns are just good guy, bad guy, you know. Um, but a good western, as John Ford, like John Ford would say, and I'm paraphrasing here. Uh, he said something like, well, Western isn't about good and bad, or it's about consequences. And I feel like this is a good Western because I feel like it touches on like touches on that some as like a social issue of like just the ugliness of men at that time, and nowadays too. We can be ugly sons of bitches. Did you get the vibe like that from the film?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, that's something that really uh, hasn't changed. There's a lot of hatred for all even the saloon scene. Pretty much everybody in there is all white men, but they're all
Hmm.
hate each other. They're all being, cruel towards each other. You can't trust any of them. They're all looking around, wondering if anyone's going to shoot them in the back. They walk in and they're, stealing whiskey and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
and like you said, the ending, it's kind of like, Hickok and Crazy Horse are like two sides of the same coin at the end. But they're friends, they're brothers, but again, they can't be friends and brothers. Crazy Horse says at the end, he says, even though we're brothers, if I see you again, I will only see a white man. So,
Right.
unfortunately, their mixed races cannot. It keeps them apart. And then we've got Charlie, the mountain man. He, of course, becomes friends with Crazy Horse. Also, they trade a knife for a gun, but yet Charlie at the end walks away too. He just cannot comprehend being friends with uh, a Native American. So we see that too. They go out in the woods, the three men bond, but then once they're leaving the woods, going back to the civilization, they unfortunately have to end that friendship again because of the, the prejudice, the racism
Mhm.
that's in the society, that's in society
Yeah,
or
just
civilization.
can I add to that, Paul, that you're right. You're right. They do bond. Um, One Eye does struggle a lot to warm to Crazy Horse, but poor old Bronson, he loses everybody. He
Right.
loses his best
Mhm.
mate, One Eye. He loses Worm, and he loses his girlfriend. Like she won't talk to him again after he shoots up the buffalo head. So
Right.
he has nobody in the end at the end of the movie. I think it's a bit
Mhm.
different in the book, but yeah, he has nobody. Poor bugger.
Right. Yeah, it's a very sad ending. In fact, and the music is fantastic too. It's got that melancholy theme that we hear throughout the film. We first hear it on the mountain when Crazy Horse and Hickok first meet, and then it's played throughout the film, and then it's played over the end credits. When it's played when they leave, when the two men part at the end also. So it's a really nice melancholy piece of music written by John Barry.
Very, yeah, beautiful music.
Speaking of books, if you're listening to this and for some weird reason you don't know Paul Talbot, I don't know why you would be listening to a Charles Bronson podcast if you didn't. You got to pick up Bronson's Loose again, and you got to pick up these Kino Lorber um, DVDs, Blu-rays that he does commentary for. Because I was one of these guys. I was like, I don't know commentary, because to me, like the commentary was like bridesmaids, and they're talking to like the lady from the movie or something. But when I first started picking up Paul Talbot's, like you get an education. Like you put the film on, and I mean, there'll be a piece of trash will be like rolling down the street, and Paul will tell you like what fast food place it came from and stuff. The man is amazing. So if you don't own all his stuff, you need to go buy it right now and make him a rich man. Are you a rich man, Paul?
Uh, Not from my Bronson scholarship, but that's okay. That's my passion, so it's all good.
I saw you hobnobbing with the guy from Rat. I was being born in 1975. I was a huge fan of Rat. Like I think when I was like 11 or 12 is when they hit, and I was a big fan of that genre in general. And you
Right.
were you were hobnobbing with Stephen Piercy of Rat.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm a huge metalhead. That's kind of like I do these bucket list type things now. I'll travel and
Mm.
see some band that I used to like, and because don't know how long they're gonna be around. Don't know how long I'm gonna be around. So
Yeah. I'm a big metalhead guy too. Metalhead and punk and all those things I grew up on. And it's funny because being 11 or 12 when bands were really big, I didn't have parents that let me go to concerts. A lot of my friends went and saw the band. So I see a lot of them now. Um ab- uh, and it's fun because you see them in a small club, a lot of them, because they're not as big as they used to be, and it's a lot of fun.
all right.
You got a neat life over there, Paul. You're living
Oh
it
well,
up.
thank you. Oh,
There's a lot.
well, you got a good podcast. Things are going good with you too. Yeah.
Yeah, that you're right. It is, but I mean, I bet you're swimming in tail, aren't you? They call you Paul Talbot, don't you? Don't
Ha
they?
ha ha. No, no.
No, okay. With
Yeah.
that,
Hey, Paul, how close are you to your third book? But is that coming out soon?
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. It's like, I did do a Spanish version, which is called La Ley de Bronson, which means Bronson's Law, which combines my Bronson's Loose books, and I also added some extra chapters also, including there's a chapter on the white buffalo. So we'll have to see if I can turn that into a third book. It's difficult to do books, like I said. You got to get all the permission to do the photographs and stuff like that. And so it's hard to say. We'll see what happens. I certainly would like to do another one for the English language market. So
Hey,
to
Paul.
talk on what Eric said, if you want to see the White Buffalo, if you have it, it's available on all the streaming services. And if you want to watch it with my commentary track, there's a Blu-ray from Kino Lorber. Of course, Blu-ray is the best way to watch a movie, and I did a commentary track for it. This the Kino Lorber White Buffalo has a 2K scan from the 35 millimeter interpositive. And I also, my commentary track is also on the Blu-ray from the German label. The German label is called Wicked Vision. And this one also has some other extras and it has a booklet and some other stuff in it. So if you want to watch the White Buffalo, that's how you can find it.
Excellent. It was also what Eric said. I think in the very first podcast with you, first interview, first thing he said was he was so envious that his guidance counselor had never told him that he could be a Charles Bronson historian. Now, you're just saying
Yeah.
you might have a bit of trouble, getting this third novel out, and it might take some time, mate. I would volunteer to be your assistant. I could come over and I think I could help out. What do
Okay. All right.
you As an assistant historian
All right.
for
Good.
You
Paul
could get
Talbot.
him, you get him his coffee and stuff like that.
Exactly. I would do
Okay.
anything. I would
All
sweep the
right.
floor.
Paul, is it fun? Is it fun doing this work?
Oh yeah, I enjoy it. And I also appreciate hearing like meeting new people like Max. And of course I've known you for a while now. When people who actually read it or listen to it and really appreciate it. Because of course I spend all these hours and hours digging through these newspapers, reading all this stuff, wondering if any, and then difficult thing about a commentary track is you have to match it up to what's going on the screen. That's what's the most difficult part. You can't
Yeah,
just write it. You also have to write it to fit this particular scene. Or I'm talking about a particular actor. I'm like, man, I got more to say, but he's only in this brief scene. Or I want to talk about this mound of bones, but the shot doesn't last that long. So all that work
right.
goes into it. When guys like you listen to it and appreciate it, or read it and appreciate it, that makes it worthwhile. So,
Yeah, and that's why I have people like Max on, and when you had John C. and Brad was just a listener who, actually Brad, I called him when he was meeting you at the drive-in, and
mhm.
me and Brad hit it off, so he became my. But yeah, all these guys are just people I met through the internet, through the page, people that get it, that get what we're trying to do here, that we're not just trying to, not just talk about the movies, but talk about why we love them and talk about and kind of dove deep into them because I'm not a a historian type. Like I like to do research, but I don't have the time or the kind of the brain like you. But I like to think about the psyche of the film or what's going on in our heads as viewers. And I think a lot of times movies can be. Another thing too is I'm seeing these movies for the 4 millionth time, but when you're watching them with a different perspective, like interpretation, a lot of that, a lot of times we put that weight on the directors or the storytellers, but I think a lot of times our own interpretation, I find it very interesting. I like to see what other people think, what they caught, what I didn't notice, that they kind of thought, and that I just and there's a handful of people that really get it, and so yeah, I like to bring them on, and we have a good time, and we want to thank you for being here.
Great, great, thanks. Well, it's great. The internet, you can find people. Like I said, we're talking about in our generation before the internet. You'd be watching these movies and you think you've got nobody else in the world who likes them. But with the internet
Yeah.
brings us, we can tonight we're talking with Max from Australia. So we're all over the world. We can meet friends who like the same stuff we do.
Right. It's really cool. It's one of the good things about it. There's a lot of bad things about the internet and the bad things about social media and the bad things, it all goes back to this AI shit that I can't take. But
Right.
this is good. This is good. Did you have any parting words, Paul?
No, that's it. Just watch the White Buffalo if you have not, and if you have, watch it again.
Yeah. And get it with the commentary, with Paul's commentary. And Max, any parting words from down under?
Oh yeah, from down under, yeah, early in the morning here. Paul, you are very much admired and appreciated. You know, when we try to do a bit of research, Eric and I have sort of tried to do a little bit on his early TV work, and it's you
Oh
go
yeah,
down
that's right.
you go down a rabbit hole, and it and then you know you get lost at it. But at my age, I forget where I was looking when you get down, you go there and you over
Right.
there, and I think, what was I actually looking for? But there are a few questions I did want to ask you, maybe off air. But there was one like at Mahoney Drive, that was magical. You know that was it Harry Guerrero. He has a lot of eight. 35 millimeter and 16 millimeter, and you converted them. You were able to convert them to DVD. Was that right for some of your commentaries? Is that
Yeah,
what
well,
you do?
Harry has an incredible collection, not just of the full features, but also of the
Yeah.
trailers and the TV spots, which are very valuable. And of course, the studio usually throws those away because they're like, we don't need trailers or TV spots. The movie's not playing anymore. So people like uh, Harry Guerrero who collects them, and that's really fascinating. So I got in touch with Harry for Breakout, I think was the first one, so and he was able to digitize them and was able to put them on the Breakout DVD and some other ones, some other Blu-rays also. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And is that a hard process? It like it to convert from 35 mil?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, a friend of Harry's actually made a machine that he can do it. So it's a complicated, not that complicated, but you have to actually project the film, and then you have a camera, a digital camera that captures that. So
Wow.
it's yeah. So
That
Expensive?
sounds like a
I think I'm not really sure what the cost of it was. I mean, again, it's one of those things where those people are like fans of it, so they're like really smart. They're able to, create their own, almost like create their own machines how to capture it. So, but
now.
it
Are
can't.
we?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, are we speaking about the guys from Exhumed Films? Is that who you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
right. Hmm.
Yeah, they used to do. I think I brought this up on another episode that you were on, but before the internet and Facebook and all that. Well, not before the internet, but before Facebook and all that, they used to do double feature horror things at this theater called the Harwin in New Jersey, which isn't too far from me. I live in a part of Pennsylvania that's real close to New Jersey, and yeah, and now they do the thing at the Mahoning, but yeah, they would have tons of trailers before the movies, and it was always so much fun.
Hmm.
Those guys are legends.
And you
Right.
know him pretty well, Paul? Do you know Harry well?
Not too well. We've worked on some stuff together. We all and he did a triple feature of Bronson at the Mahoning Drive-In, and he invited me to speak before there, and I also sold my books. So we've had some contact. We've had some meals together and some conversations. Yeah, so I've spent some time with him and worked on a couple of projects with him. The Valdez horse is another one. Some of his print was actually used and some of his TV spots. So, and I may have worked on another Blu-ray with him. I can't recall, but definitely I worked on Breakout and Valdez Horses with him. Yeah. So,
Excellent.
mhm.
Yeah. So
All right.
I suppose we're winding up, Eric. But one
Yeah.
thing, circle back, just a quick one. Um, I know, listening to some of your podcasts and then interviews, there was a big thing about Bronson not shaving his moustache off, and he looks great in the White Buffer, obviously with it. But in the book, Wild Bill, his blonde hair has long blonde hair, but he shaves his moustache off to because he's going under disguise, like
That's
he's
right.
but I assume that's one that Bronson said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, in the screenplay, he doesn't do that. So that, and again, Bronson, of course, was not originally cast as Hickok. So that may have been something, yeah, that they cut out of the screenplay. But as you said, Bronson, I'm sure, would have refused to do that part where he shaves his mustache because he very rarely agreed to do that. For example, I know on Borderline, the director wanted him to shave his mustache to give it a different look, but Bronson refused to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think the mustache was kind of I think the fans wanted it in most of the
right,
films, I think. Yeah.
right,
Unless of course it just, it like Hard Times, he shaved it because it was more, went more with the times. I always kind of thought it was weird that he had it in Chato's Land. I don't really remember seeing a lot of Native Americans with mustaches in the movies, but
right.
it is what it is. It's a,
Yeah.
like I got to tell my son all the time, you got to suspend disbelief because my son is 9 and he just doesn't he has a question every 2 seconds when we watch a movie. Like
Mhm.
like if something's not realistic or something, he doesn't, but then he'll watch these dinosaur movies and then there is no question at all. The dinosaur can hop on a spaceship and fly away and he doesn't think twice of it. But he has a lot of questions when he watches my movies with me. But I'm blessed that a 9-year-old will watch some of these movies with me. Kinjite, he loves that. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke, everybody.
Mate, I love Noah's voice as a little boy. He advertises a record, some records, a record
Oh,
and it's
oh,
so cute. He's got that little baby voice, and he has. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
some of our earlier episodes, yes, were sponsored by Hobo Wolfman Records. Hobo
Oh,
Wolfman Records for all your
like
punk
Wolf,
rock and
Wolfman. Yeah,
underground music needs.
it's so cute.
I don't know if they're still operating out there, but I know you can get a hold of Danny. You can get a hold of Danny. Not the Danny that does this, but my friend Danny from Hobo Wolfman Records. I'm sure he still has
Oh man,
a room somewhere full of shit that he's trying to get rid of. But
yeah,
anyway, yes, Noah,
so
like
cute.
this is probably the first episode Noah hasn't barged in on. I'm surprised.
Mm.
But I am going to mold him into a Charles Bronson fan, and I'm going to encourage him to hopefully um, do something in the arts world, be a writer or something like that, because he's got a great mind, and we're working on our second or third story together. All of them have a demonic pizza. Every story that he makes up has a demonic pizza, like a pizza that's um possessed by Satan. But yeah, he's got quite a mind.
Good.
Yeah. And play we've really gone down but this is what we do here.
Rabbit
Paul, I
hole.
want to thank you so much, brother. You are great. I hope you'll come back again. Your fourth time you come, you get a smoking jacket with your initials on it.
All right.
And hopefully Brad will be here. And Brad loves I like that. I like his accent with Max's and then my awful Philly accent. Like we really would be like a
That's
battle of
good.
the accents here. So
Right.
so
Good.
I
yeah.
got an accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have an accent. You've been listening to This Week in Charles Bronson. Our guest has been Paul Talbot. Get his books, Bronson's Loose Again, and get every Kino Lorber Blu-ray that he does the commentary to. And of course, we got Max, the Thunder from Down Under, the Vegemite Vigilante from Australia, the Banana Bender. All right.
All right.
Good night. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it, buddy.